ground rules. You will have the chat window where you can introduce yourselves and ask your questions, queries. We have our host, Venki, from the TIE and the Matrix Forum. Over to you, Venki.
Hey, thanks, Vinay, and good evening and welcome to everybody on this Matrix Forums webinar series that we conduct every month. The last month, we conducted a series connecting the Indian Railways to our startup community, and this particular webinar is going to be something very, very interesting to all the deep tech startups and especially people who are in space tech and aviation sector, because startups are all about where do you go and get that working capital, or maybe where do you get that money to commercialize your product once you kind of hit your MVP or once you hit your product market fit, right? So today is the day where we have a person on the ground who actually make things happen for deep tech startups. And he's none other than Manish. Manish is actually a PhD, and he actually runs the space sector and aviation sector under the Technology Development Board, the TDB, which primarily gets involved in today, they're kind of gone one step ahead in supporting space tech startups and aviation startups, primarily to commercialize your products. Okay, so I don't want to steal the thunder from Manish because he has a fantastic presentation of what he's going to offer to all of us. Without much ado, I'd like to just welcome Manish. He's based out of Delhi. He's one gentleman I've been interacting with the last 18 months. Very accessible, very, very accessible, a person who kind of gives you all the pointers of how to make this proposal and how to kind of, get prepared to answer the jury and so on and so forth. So the reason why I tell you this is apart from being on the board of TIE Bangalore, I'm the president of Astrom Technologies, and Astrom has been one of the deep tech startups that TDB funded 2 weeks ago, and they don't stop there. They also go ahead and tell the whole world about what they have done for the startup and why they have done it. So I hope that it's going to be as useful as what it was to us as Astrom. So welcome everybody, and without much ado, Manish, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Venki. Thank you for your nice introduction, and thank you Tech Matrix Forum for giving me this opportunity to interact with the budding startups, and look forward to a good discussion with them. So I have planned like that I would like to make a small presentation to all the startups just to set the context right. And after that, I would like to have a Q&A session from all the startups on their queries and what they are looking forward to. So if permission is given, then I may like to share one desktop, a small presentation on Technology Development Board.
Yeah, while you pull up that presentation, Manish, a request to everybody to keep their questions. Maybe you can start posting them on the chat board. And immediately after Manish finishes this presentation, we will take as many questions as possible, because we'd like this to be a more of a Q&A than a one-way street. So Manish, go ahead.
So my desktop is visible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Technology Development Board. Technology Development Board is created for technology development and to help the private sector companies in doing the commercialization of the technology. Technology Development Board is basically arm of DST, Department of Science and Technology. So the agenda for today's discussion is that I will be introducing about a TDB mission, vision and objective, salient feature of TDB funding, TDB funding criteria, TDB evaluation process, and time to time TDB floats a various call for proposals. We will discuss briefly about it, followed by the question and answer session from the members. The TDB basically created out of Act of Parliament, and the Act states that we collect the R&D cess from the private companies in the name of the R&D. So government has decided that this R&D cess, which is collected from the private companies, should be given to a particular entity who is responsible for the commercialization of technology and helping the Indian companies in commercializing and taking a product to the market. So with that intent, a Technology Development Board was created, and it has come into effect in September 1996. So the main aim of the Technology Development Board is to promote the development and commercialization of indigenous technology and adaptation of the imported technology for wider domestic application. So with this basic aim, the government has incepted the Technology Development Board in September 1996. So what are the values and mission we carry? Basically, our main mission is to, is to help in the commercialization of the innovation. So commercializing innovation is the basic aim and mandate of our organization. So TDB goal is to make the weak zone of technology development, which is commercialization, strong even with the risk of failures. TDB is the only how the TDB is different from the banks. Banks will look into the financial aspect of the project because they see the return on the investment. But TDB is not that way. TDB funds the project even at the risk of the failures because we see a value addition in that, we see a content in that, and then we do fund the project even if there is a risk that project may not take off after some time. So to help the companies in making the commercialization is strong. So TDB goal is to make the weeks of technology development and commercialization is strong. So what are the objective of TDB? TDB objective is to foster the innovation, adaptation of the imported technology, and to have an import substitute and invest in the strategic sector. So in order to help all these things, objective of the TDB was created. So what are the salient feature of the TDB's funding? So if you applied for any proposal of financial assistance to TDB, and TDB funding criteria includes that it is very relaxed terms. We just charge a 5% simple interest, and after the completion of a project, there is a 1-year moratorium period, and the repayment starts after the 1-year moratorium period, and it is in the time frame of 4.5 years. And there is a royalty 0.5% on the annual sales turnover till the currency of a loan. When you pay back the TDB's loan, the royalty is no more applicable. And during the course of the project is evaluated through the acknowledged industries experts, so who gives a lot of handholding to the company in terms of the project execution. And TDB scheme is open throughout the year, and it is sector agnostic. So we support all the sector from transport to the space, from aviation to the biomedical. So all sector are open for support by TDB, and it is open throughout the year. So there is no timeline. Whenever you have a data ready, you have a proposal ready, you can apply to TDB at any point of time. So with regard to the project funding, so what are the project items which can be funded or supported by the TDB? TDB, as I said earlier, that supports the commercialization of a technology, and commercialization requires the promoter to have the line of site development expenses, the factory and administrative expenses to be made. They have to bought the plant and machinery. It can be imported or indigenous, miscellaneous fixed assets, patent creation, know-how, and the margin money of the working capital. So TDB do not fund the working capital as such. TDB funds the margin money for the working capital. So basically, TDB funds the capex items, not the OPEX item or the working capital part. So because at the commercialization stage, when the technology is proven and promoter wants to take to the market, so they have to set up the capex. They have to invest in the capex, which are basically heavy on the cash flow of the company. So at this point, TDB helps in funding a project with these cost heads. And other main aspect of the TDB funding is that TDB supports is limited to the 50% of the project cost to be incurred. Like suppose the project cost is 10 crores. 1 crore you have already incurred in the project, and 9 crore is yet to be incurred. So TDB funds the 4.5 crores, and first 4.5 crore is to be raised by the promoter. So, and all the funding comes in tranches, 2, 3 or 4 tranches in the terms of matching fund. When the company promoter has brought in the matching fund from their side, TDB will fund their part. So this is how the funding mechanism of TDB works. And TDB basically funds the companies which are registered under the Companies Act, and the startups which are registered with the DPIIT. But registration with the DPI kitty is optional. It is not mandatory. Any startup, but has to be registered with the Companies Act. And TDB funds from startups, MSME, or any industrial concern which are registered under the Companies Act are eligible to avail the funding from Technology Development Board. So when you submit a proposal to TDB, the project is submitted to the committee of experts, and there are two levels of evaluation. First, it will be evaluated by the initial committee. Initial committee sees the proposal from the point of technical and financial merit, and if it really meets the TDB funding guidelines or not. When it is meeting the TDB funding guidelines and it is agreed by the competent committee that project has a technical and financial merit, then it is given to the second level of committee. Second level of committee, basically it's a project evaluation committee, and it is generally on-site. So on-site, there will be detailed due diligence of the project with the interaction of the promoter and the company fellows, that there will be detailed due diligence carried on technical and financial side. And after that, the project is submitted to the board. If the project cost is more than 10 crores, then TDB also do a third-party evaluation. And after the proposal is submitted to the board and board approves it, then the TDB sanctions the loan to the company. The assistance can be in the form of loan, equity, or grant. Generally, TDB funds in terms of the loan. Equity part is not so common, and grant is basically given when there is some nationally important project. And grant is basically directed from the ministry side. Like in the COVID period, TDB has given a grant to many companies who are working on the COVID solution, because at that time it was a need of the hour. But otherwise, TDB generally funds in terms of soft loan. So that is basically the evaluation process of the TDB. And TDB do not charge any processing fees as of date. And TDB funding also, if a company has got the funding from Technology Development Board, then they can leverage the TDB's funding to get the funds from other financial institutions or bank. So that way TDB really helps the promoter and company to raise the further funding. So recently TDB has launched the call for proposal in the space and aviation technology. So this is proposal is basically initiated with the directives of the ISRO and the Ministry of Space, that we are now, a lot of private sectors are coming in the space sector, and the space sector is now open for startups and MSME to make a contribution in that area. So with that intent, the government has directed to us to put the call for proposal to support the companies who are working in the space and aviation technology. The primary areas which are covered in this space and aviation technology are basically a communication, remote sensing, navigation. It can be a navic receivers or GPS receivers, whatsoever the startups are engaged in developing. Fabrication technology, spacecraft technology, launch vehicle and simulations, and satellite manufacturing. So company engaged in these following areas are applicable to apply to this call. If you see the communication, it can be a VSAT hardware, satellite hub technology and services, mobile terminals for strategic applications, and mobile terminals for disaster and rescue operations. So all these areas can be supported by TDB with this call. And in the remote sensing, space-based Earth observation system, ground-based and airborne observation system, application and utilization of remote sensing data, image processing, and GIS software. And in the navigation thing, location-based services using Navic receivers, Navic chip, and other related hardwares, and real-time location and tracking applications. Electronic fabrication technologies, mechanical fabrication technologies for the launch vehicles, spacecraft technology. So all these are the areas which are covered under this call. So if you have working in any of these areas or even a part of that, so you are eligible to apply to this call. And with this, applying to this call basically will help you in getting an accelerated attention to your proposal. So our application, you can submit online by going to our website, tdb.gov.in, at any point of the time. And there are funding guidelines in the download section. You can download the funding guidelines, and you can get the details that what are the activities which can be funded by TDBs, and what are the basically companies who can be funded by TDBs, what are the project cost head which can be supported, what are the means of finance which can be supported and considered eligible by TDB. So all those things are detailed in the funding guidelines, which can be downloaded from the download section. And there is a link of the proposal submission, but you can submit via there is a link on the website. You can submit at any point of time, and some proposal will come to us. So this is basically the methodology of submitting a proposal to us, that there is a link blinking on the website. By clicking on that link, you have to register yourself, and after registering yourself, you have to fill the application form online to us. And processing of the application at TDB's end will take around 3 to 4 months. First there will be initial screening committee. When you submit a proposal, it will be evaluated by the initial screening committee. And after the initial screening committee, if a project is accepted, then it will go to the second level of evaluation. So all this evaluation and completion and the approval by the board takes around 3 to 4 months. And after that, the project amount is sanctioned to the company, which is in tranches. And the final tranche will be released after the commercialization of the project. And after that, there is 1 year moratorium period followed by the repayment cycle of 4.5 years. So this is the basic about the TDB's funding mechanism. So with that, I would like to stop my presentation and would like to know from the participants and their queries, and I'm glad to answer their queries which they have with this session.
Yeah, we have Suraj who has a question. Suraj, I'll just unmute you so you can ask your question.
Yes, good evening, and thank you, Manish ji, for that bird's eye view of TDB's activities. One question that came to my mind as you were speaking is, wanted to know if TDB also funds companies where promoters have already put in the funds and need to scale up further with a particular project proposal.
Yes, TDB can fund the project which are for the scale up, but it has to be seen in the holistic way that what sort of scale up you want. If you have already reached the commercialization and you are looking for the full scale commercialization, right? So you can go to the banks and get the facilities ready for the commercialization. But if you are still requiring the cash flow, right? And do not have the cash flow and you are looking for the scale up. So for that, actually, TDB can support in setting up the manufacturing facility of that particular project.
Okay. And also, if TDB, I mean, if the entity wants to get into a new arena, what it's currently not doing, then TDB supports that as well?
Yeah, any new innovation or any new setup you wanted to make in the company, so you have to submit a proposal to us that will be looked into by the committee, and then it will be discussed and with you, and the further course of action will be decided. But yes, the new proposals, new innovation supported by the company are always supported by TDB.
And we have Ravi who has raised his hand.
Yeah, my name is Ravi. I run a startup in advanced material. My question is, when you say technology development, it always has a risk of R&D failure, and the TDB schemes is mostly like after R&D you want to set up a plant, it gives a loan. But if you are in a R&D stage and if you take a loan, and if the project is not successful, the startup is not in a position to pay back the loan. A more suitable scheme would be a grant, and such type of grants are quite common in US, like Department of Defense, or even in India, like BIRAC gives a lot of technology development grants for R&D. Is there any grant scheme for startup available for technology development?
See, as I have told you earlier, TDB funds for the commercialization, not exactly for the development. Basically, the grant is required at the R&D stage where the risk of failure is very high. And BIRAX gives the grant, DST gives the grant because they are supposed to support the project which are in the development stage or R&D stage. But a project which is coming to us are from the DST or from the BIRAX, which are quite mature enough and they're looking for the market. And at that stage, they require the funding. So it is not that we should be funding as a loan, because with a grant, we cannot create the entrepreneurs. TDB's goal is to create the entrepreneur successful, and that can be done with the help of soft loan. So that's why the intent is to fund the project in terms of soft loan, not as a grant.
Yeah. We have Nikita, yes.
sir. Thank you so much for the whole presentation. The question is, would you be funding? I mean, it comes under satellites, though. A particular experiment that we would want to do in space, is it like, something like a platform to conduct an experiment, right? Would that also come under this list? Is one question. Second, I was little late on joining this meeting. I would also want to know what is the amount that it will be sanctioned. Like, is it any certain amount of fixed, or is it dependent on the project and based on our request? Something that I would like to know. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, see, testing and trials are not supported by TDB. We expect that particular product is tested and trials are done. So testing and trials are not supported. We basically fund the product when it is tested and tried and you are ready for the market. Okay. And regarding the regarding the quantum of funding, so there is no limit in the quantum of funding. It depends upon the project. TDB has supported the project up to 500 crores as well. So it all depends upon the project to project. So as such, there is no limit from the government. We are looking for a technology, basically. It's a technology development board. So if the technology is 100 crores or 500 crores, it doesn't matter. But what we look forward is the technology.
Yeah, we have a question from Chetan.
Hi there. Thanks for the presentation. I just looked at the FAQs on your website, and one of the things that comes up is that there is like a heavy focus on manufacturing, hardware based technologies and things like that. How about innovations in AI, which are primarily software based, and is this something that the TDB also looks at, or is it primarily only for manufacturing / hardware technologies?
No, it is not like that. TDB has funded a number of companies who are working primarily in the software product development. Okay, we see software also as a product. And TDB has funded a number of companies who have only intangible as a software, right? Or development of the IPs. So those sort of activities are supported by a TDB.
I see. So if
there is no hardware involved in that, there is no tangible thing. It's only basically IP creation or a software development or app development, but it was targeting some to a particular niche area. So that was supported by the TDB.
I see. So what you're saying is basically, though there are proposals primarily in agriculture space, if there are applications beyond these, well, the TDB would entertain such applications, correct?
Yes, right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have Prem for the question.
Okay. Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. So actually, suppose does TDB help by prioritizing purchase of technologies that are funded by the TDB, by the government agencies? For example, there are certain technologies like, say, hardware for quantum computing or photonics, which are highly specialized. And generally what happens is the established companies from the West or from China and Europe and other countries, developed countries, they tend to have an advantage because their technologies are already proven on the ground. And in many cases, my own experience shows that when we buy those technologies, we actually see that those were the very kind of startups that we are starting up with. And they are at an experimental stage. They package their whatever they have devised, they sell it to us, and we buy that and start experimenting with them. And so this is actually we are losing an opportunity to innovate in this country. So instead, we can develop this kind of technologies within the country. Will TDB actually support us by getting the government agencies like colleges, universities, research centers to buy these? This gives the initial market to the startup, an initial boost to the
right, sir. Actually, sir, TDB cannot support in that area. That company promoter has to look forward to the right institutions to get a support on that. But once you have got the support from R&D institutions and we have some technology tie-up from them, and then you wanted to take it to the market, but that particular technology.
Yeah.
So then you may come to TDB, sir. But prior to that, making a connect with the institutions is not in our mandate actually, sir.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
We have a hand raised from Jagan. Yeah.
Thank you, Venki, for the opportunity. So thank you, Manish, sir, for providing us a brief overview. For the technology transfers that are being done by ISRO, DRDO, which has already been proven, if in case we have to procure and then we are to commercialize it, so does TDB support in that actually? In case it's already been proven, it's already been used, and then ISRO is doing the technology transfer to MSMEs, right? So
Right,
those
right.
kind of
See, if you have already done a technology transfer, right, and you have paid a license fee to the ISRO, so then you can come to TDB for scaling up. But TDB will not come into picture before that. You have to prove your setup that you are taking a technology from ISRO or some R&D institutions, and after that you wanted to take it to the next level by commercializing it. Then for that TDB funds will come into picture, but not before that, sir. We have supported number of companies who have taken a technology from CSIR or BARC or some other like R&D institutions, and after that they have commercialized the technology with the help of TDB funding. So at that stage, TDB gladly comes into picture.
Jagan has a follow-up question. Is it?
No, I wanted to say thank you for that, but I was not able to unmute. Thank you so much.
We have Atul Deshpande for the question.
Right. Hi, Manish.
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned that you fund the capex part. TDB is mainly funding the capex, but then if it is a AI solution, there may not be any capex involved. So how does that?
Yes, sir. Actually, in that case, pre-operative and preliminary expenses are there, which are basically a manpower expenses, and the manpower expenses till a duration of a particular project commercialization. So that is supported by TDB.
So that will be treated as capex. You're saying
that is treated as a capex. You cannot basically it will be in the capex format. Actually, you cannot capitalize it unless the project is completed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, over to you, Venki.
Okay, great. So, hey, Manish, thanks a lot for that insight in what TDB is doing and for startups. And I'm very, very happy that there's one organization in India that's kind of wanting to support deep tech. Because hardware is hard. It's very difficult to get money to kind of even do an MVP or do a prototype, right? So here you're saying that once you finish that and when you're getting into commercialization, the question that I have is, what is the TRL level that you think that one needs to achieve before they apply for a debt capital or an equity capital from TDB?
Yes, sir. Actually, Venki, basically,
I know there's no equity capital, right? You don't take. It's just either a grant or
basically debt.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Venki, basically TDB looks for the product which is market ready.
Okay.
And it has to be mature enough. It has to be at the TRL level 7 and above.
You said 7 and above, right?
7 and above. So prototype has to be ready, and it has passed some test. It has approved at the POC stages, and promoter is looking to take it to the market. Okay, so in taking to the market, he may require a lot of certifications, patenting things, and also setting up the plants and machinery. to take it to the market in a larger scale. So at that point of time, there's a lot of cash flow and there is no inflow of the capital because it takes some time because and there's a marketing, sales requirement, all those things goes into the project. So at that stage we fund, but at the R&D stages or at the development stages we do not come. There are many other institutions like DST, BIRAC, and Niti Aayog. They are funding at the R&D stage or prototype development stage. But after prototype development, when the product is proven and it is ready for the market, and promoter wants to take it to the next level by raising a fund, so at that stage we comes into picture. Basically, for the commercialization in our aspect, and technology has to be at a TRL level, 7 mm.
Okay, interesting, very interesting. Thank you for that. And so coming back to the application, the call for proposals, right? So I think the focus is more on space tech and aviation technologies.
Space and aviation technology.
Right. So what happens if you have a startup which is exactly what you said, completed TRL 7, and they would really want some funds to commercialize it further? What happens if they are not in space tech? Can they apply right now?
Yeah, if they are not in this space, they can definitely apply now in a normal mode. Actually, see, we have a call for proposal and we have a normal mode of proposal, right? So they can always apply in a normal mode.
Okay, good.
Okay. So, but if they have some proposals which are directed to the space and aviation sector, they can apply through this call also. The only difference in the normal mode and the space and this call which I have given is that it will be given the space call will be given a dedicated attention, and the processing time would be a bit short. And the normal mode, it may take 3 to 4 months.
Okay, and this how many months you said you're going to take if it is space?
Yes, if it is a space call, so it may be evaluation may be completed in 2 to 3 months.
Into 2 months. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, great.
But if you are applying in normal mode for any project, right, it's a sector agnostic as I have told you earlier. So processing time may take some time, 3 to 4 months, but it's a process. It will be processed.
Okay, great. And what is the quantum of funding for space tech? Is it different from the normal mode applications? Is there any specific, have you made some extra, quota and credit and funding for space tech?
No, there is no difference. There is no limit on the quantum of funding. It is as same as the normal mode of proposal. Only thing is that it's a ministry initiative. Ministry has directed TDB that since the space sector is opening up to the private companies, so let us do some work for them and they maybe need requiring financial assistance. So let us have this call. It is directed by the ministry. Let us have this call and try to help the space and budding startups in the space and aviation sector.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So I think there's a question from Sudha Karbari. You want to unmute, Vinay?
Sudha?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, thanks. Sir, I just checked the website. So it tells like there is a call for agriculture and allied sector. Can you just let me know what's that all about?
Yeah, actually, see, let me share my screen.
And it's they have only mentioned to submit 2 documents. One is supporting, the other is the kind of pitch deck or what? And
yeah, actually, there is another call going on, and it is by a different group. They are publishing this call for agriculture and allied sector, and details are there in the website. So the areas are mentioned in that, and accordingly, you can apply against that call. So this is
for that also. Okay.
So this is another parallel call which is going on.
Okay, for that also, is it like we have to be ready with MVP and commercialization stage?
Yes. So basically, mandate is same. We have to be ready for the commercialization.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, that brings me to another question, Manish. I mean, supposing, let's say, we have thousands of IoT startups, okay, who have products and who are way beyond even TRL 7. They're kind of selling already. But how will you, let's say you get like hundreds of applications, hypothetically, that fulfills the criteria.
Okay.
How will you go about awarding funding to them? Are you kind of saying you will look at maybe the best of them, or will you give loans to all the 100 if they fulfill the criteria? Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, actually, see, all the proposals are looked separately. They are not compared against each other. And if all the proposals suppose meet the criteria, if all the proposals fall in our mandate, and they are all the niche area and they meet these funding guidelines, so all can be supported by TDB.
Oh, lovely. That is...
So there is nothing limit actually, right? Like 100 applications have come and we have to rate them as a 1, 2, 3, and rest we have to let go. So that situation is not there. If all meets the criteria, all are eligible to funding, to win the funding from TDB, so they all will be getting the funding.
Oh, lovely. That's very, very good to hear. That's very good to hear. And somewhere you said that, there's a limit of 4.5, 5 crores, or what happens if there's a startup that requires maybe 10 crores? How do you see that application?
So suppose the project cost is around 20 crores and startup has put up a proposal that they may require TDB funding of 10 crores. TDB will fund at 10 crores and 10 crores startup has to bring from their side. So TDB will give the matching funding because we want that promoter should also take some risk from their side if TDB is taking the risk. So it's basically a risk sharing between the promoter and the government.
Interesting. So there's no cap really on how much you don't have a cap for the startup to ask for the project, right? It could be
there is no cap.
It could be any number as long as the startup can match 1:1. TDB is very happy to extend the support.
Definitely, sir. Definitely.
Oh, lovely. Oh, very happy to hear that as well, because I think small and medium enterprises who have that kind of ability to kind of put in more, to pitch in more, I think can leverage this scheme of TDB, right?
Definitely, sir. Definitely.
Okay, that's nice. So, which means you're just not looking at specific innovation from companies. It could be any product that fulfills TRL level 7 and above, and if the startup is willing to pitch in 50%, you're willing to kind of fund them, right? So
yes, and it all be evaluated by the committee of experts who are in that particular domain. And if the committee of experts feel that project is really innovative and will bring a change to the market, it's a game changer, or it's an import substitute. So
okay, so there are two. Okay, so that's another important point that all of us need to make. So you're saying either it's got to fulfill an import substitution criteria,
right, sir,
or it's got to be something extremely innovative
right,
that would maybe help the Indian consumption market or Indian demand, right? Or yeah, something like that. Okay, that's
yes, because there's a lot of Make in India thing going on, right? Okay. Make in India, make design in India. So all sort of things are going on, right? TDB has recently funded a company developing set-top boxes. There's not much a big technology in the set-top boxes, but most of the set-top boxes in India are basically having components from the China and Taiwan.
Correct.
That is the initiative from the ministry that at least we should start making a set-top box end-to-end from the component level to the box level. So with that, the ecosystem will be built up. So with that initiative, TDB has funded that particular project that yes, we will build a set of boxes whole in India with Indian companies, no local, all with the local sourcing, no import of any component from outside. So with that sort of intent, TDB has funded project. So Make in India and Design in India is a big thing, and we are working towards making India Atmanirbhar in all aspects.
Oh, lovely. Very nice initiative. So yeah, I think I should at this time let the audience know that I've never seen a government so proactive to support the Indian startup ecosystem. I can give you examples specifically from two ministries. which is the Ministry of Electronics and IT, which is kind of supporting the fabless ecosystem up to $2 million for making chips for to fabless companies in India. They have a huge fund. I mean, the last that I know of was, I think, almost 1,000 crores, right, Anish? Yeah. And the other ministry that is really going really full hog to support startups is the Telecom Ministry, which is the Department of Telecommunications, headed by our Honorable Minister Ashwini Vaishnav. And frankly, I've never seen a minister who's so easily accessible to all of us. And they have gone ahead and supported almost 33 telecom startups. And this is not soft loan. This is not equity. This is a grant. This is a grant. Anywhere between 50 lakhs to up to 2 crores. So this is all coming from the center. This is all, and it's in a time span of less than 90 days from the time they asked telecom startups for an application. So the point I'm trying to make is the government is doing its job. The government is really coming forward in all their might to support the startup ecosystem. The other ministry that I really want to talk about here, Manish and the audience, is the Ministry of Defense, the MOD. None other than the MOD. I mean, it's all started off from MOD 5 years ago. The initiative that the MOD took was the IDEX program, right? The Innovation for Defense Excellence. And today, I lost count. I think it's more than 100 startups in the defense area that have been funded by MOD. And again, no equity-free grants. They support R&D. I mean, they're not looking at TR 7 like TDB. So if you look at the way the government is functioning, they're kind of creating an ecosystem of their own. There are certain ministries and bodies supporting MVPs, R&D, product development, and there's TDB coming at the later part of life to kind of commercialize the product. So I think it's a great India. It's a new India that I see, which I've never seen in the 3.5 years of my corporate life. So this is great for us, great for the startup ecosystem as well. So I think there are a couple of more questions here. Manish, I think Sri Ganesh wants to ask a question. Vinay, can you unmute Sri?
Yeah, just give me a second. I don't see Sri Ganesh, but I see Jagan. Jagan, just unmute Jagan. Go ahead, Jagan.
Yeah, hi. So just another question. So in some of the government schemes, right? So after we get it through, the banks, it goes to the bank, and the banks evaluate again from their end. So is it the same case with TDB? I just wanted to understand, and what kind of approvals required from the banks, and what are any securities required from there?
Yes, actually, see, TDB is not a bank and not under the RBI. But
after it goes from the TDB, I meant after it goes, it eventually goes to the bank for us to get the loan, right? So that's what I meant. Sorry.
No, I didn't get your question. Okay, TDB is not a bank. We submit a proposal to TDB. TDB will evaluate as per its process and sanction the loan to the company. TDB has nothing to do with the bank. Yes, sir. Can you please clarify again?
No, sorry. Your voice was freezing. Actually, I'm sorry, my network problem. No, I just wanted to understand if there is another evaluation process that happens in the bank side once it goes from the TDB, it gets approved by the TDB. That's all. I couldn't hear your response. I'm so sorry. It was freezing.
TDB process are different process, right? TDB has nothing to do with the bank's evaluation process. So TDB follows its own evaluation process and do a due diligence, and accordingly TDB funds the project. TDB do not follow any banking norms.
Yeah, just to add to that, Manish, Jagan, I mean, TDB stands for Technology Development Board. It's not a bank. It's not Technology Development Bank. And this directly comes in the DST, Department of Science and Technology. So it's an independent, evaluation.
It's an independent entity for technology development.
Independent entity, yes. It's just supports, it supports the technology development, of startups. So if there's an innovative product that any startup, any MSME wants to commercialize, they could always apply for a TDB loan or a grant in very special cases. Manish?
Yes, Venki, very correct. TDB basically funds the technology development. So if you have a technology and you want to take it to the market on larger scale, so for the commercialization aspect, you can approach TDB. TDB will evaluate the project as per its own guidelines and sanction the amount to the company. So TDB do not interact with the bank. But yes, if there is a project which is equally funded by the bank also, the bank is also involved in that. So yes, TDB seeks the NOC from the bank and seeks if the status of the project and status of the loan from the bank. So that information TDB seeks from the bank. But otherwise, TDB's process is independent and nothing to do with the banks.
Yeah, Sri Ganesh, I'll unmute you, see if you can.
Okay, great. So if there are no other questions, so Manish, I just want to kind of thank you very much for your time. I know you're very, very busy at TDB, sifting through applications day in, day out, and putting it to the evaluation committee, making it work. I think you and Tripti are doing a fantastic job at TDB to support the startup ecosystem. So, kudos to both of you, because I've seen both of you work at very, very close quarters, which is fantastic to have. Very easy, accessible, straightforward, simple. We know whether we're going to get it, we're not going to get it, which is great. So thank you very much, Manish, for giving us that insight on the TDB application process and specifically space tech startups. So I wish you all the best, and we hope that you receive hundreds of applications from the community, from the TIE fraternity, right? So
yeah, thank you, Venki. Thank you to your team. And I'm looking forward to the participants. They can reach out to me at any point of time through email or phone, and I'm available at any point of time. And also, if you have any query with regard to the TDB funding, do reach out to us. No issue in that. And if you have an application or some solution in the space and aviation sector, so do apply to us and we will evaluate your proposal. Even if proposal doesn't get through, at least you will get a lot of hand-holding from the knowledge experts. So that will really help you.
I can vouch for that. I can vouch for the hand-holding bit to everybody. So
because hand-holding you will get from the acknowledged industry expert, which will industry expert and the financial expert, so which is really helpful, and they will give you a good direction in raising a fund further. Fantastic. So this is from my side. Wow. Thanks and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, Manish.
Thank you
very much.
Thank
you, Bangalore team and the board of TIE Bangalore. Thank you very much for this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the audience. Fantastic question.